Right on Super Bowl Sunday, it's time to talk basketball. I'm Jose Salviati, editor at thepeachbasket.net. He is Steve Purciello, longtime educator, vice principal, high school basketball coach, athletic director, and also the host of Celtic Chalk Talk. Celtic Chalk Talk is a pod dedicated to the latest news and opinions surrounding the Boston Celtics, who made a trade a couple of days ago. We might talk about that from a lifelong fan, Steve. That pod will drop new episodes every Monday, but this is the Shot Clock Pod, the best 24 minutes of random NBA thoughts online anywhere. This podcast was born out of the content in Steve's 13 Rules, random NBA thoughts articles, which he publishes weekly. Steve and I have exactly 24 minutes to discuss what's on his mind around the NBA. Today we'll discuss his latest 13 Rules, random NBA thoughts article, where he shares his random thoughts after Week 16, which obviously saw a lot of movement, lots of teams made some moves, lots of players swapped jerseys, and we're going to talk about as many of the interesting ones that you called out in your latest article. Before we get started, if you made it this far, we're grateful. Please subscribe, follow, comment. All that stuff means the world to us. It helps us grow. We like our content, and we hope you do too, and let's get it out there to more people. All right, Steve, are you ready?
Ready.
The clock is ticking. We'll start with a defensive player of the year making a move, Jaren Jackson Jr. to the Utah Jazz. I was baffled by this one at the start, but then you called out in your article that the tank is over. The Utah Jazz have been notoriously tanking. It seems like for 2-3 seasons back, they're building a good team now.
This year, the tanking's over. They'll tank again this year.
Okay.
But they've got some solid players. Lauri Markkanen's been around. Keontae George is a good young player. And naturally, Walker Kessler has been out all year as the big. Him and Jackson make you really good in the middle and really hard. Jackson can defend a lot of different people. But Kessler just is a good anchor around the rim. And then they've got, don't forget, Ace Bailey, I believe they drafted. They've got a bunch of people that can play. Are they good enough to win it? I don't think so. But they'll be in the playoffs, and they'll be a tough team to be reckoned with. I think they might need another scorer to really get them over the top. And maybe if Bailey develops, maybe that'll be the person.
Right.
As presently constituted, I don't see them playing with the Oklahomas and the San Antonios and those type teams. But they're going to be a solid team that has to be reckoned with.
And good for Utah, right? I've said on this show before, I went to a game, just a random Tuesday game against the not good Orlando Magic at the time, and the place was packed. The crowd was energized. There was snow on the ground. They love their team in Utah. And man, I'm happy for that franchise, and I'm happy for those fans, and I'm hopeful that, as you said in your article, that there is no more tanking. Let's move to the East. Majority of the moves happened in the East. And one of the most intriguing ones for me is James Harden to the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I got two questions for you, because you called out James Harden doing what he tends to do, right? He left another franchise, although he left in good terms with the Clippers. He initiated this move. But his first game yesterday was great. I thought he played really good, and the Cavs looked really good with him. Does this elevate the Cavs to the top tier in the East?
Yeah, of course, it'll make them better because the one thing Garland didn't have was the ability to play all the time. He's been hurt so often. So naturally it does. It'll be interesting to see how he and Mitchell can interact because both of them like the ball in their hands. That will be an interesting thing for them to figure out. The other piece to that with James Harden is this. If you're a fan of a team, there is probably nobody I can think of in the NBA who's a bigger mercenary than James Harden. He plays, gets his contract, plays, then when the contract's running out, he moves on. To me, and I think this is really what bothered me, the Clippers were a great story. They really turned it around, and then all of a sudden he decided no more. Personal reasons, he was out. And obviously the Clippers wouldn't renew his contract, guarantee his money next year. He's 13 of the 40 million. So what does he do? And there's no regard for the Clipper fan or the Clippers. If you're a teammate, you say they all went away happy. You tell me, if you're a teammate, are you happy about this?
I mean, that question was posed to Kawhi Leonard, and he, in typical Kawhi fashion, just basically said, essentially, the guy did what he had to do. We need to get younger. So, if there's some animosity there, and there might be, yeah, because Kawhi made a good point. He said, "Listen, we know we weren't as constructed with Harden." He said, "We know we weren't." He didn't say these words, but he alluded to the fact that, listen, we're not going to win a championship with this team, but we really thought we were going to make some noise, right? We thought we were going to at least ruin some people's seasons, but now we've pivoted. So I think Kawhi understood that even with Harden, they weren't going to go far, but I think that there was a hint of disappointment for sure.
I understand players supporting what he did because they want the money too. I
Mm.
I got all of that. I just look at it. A friend of mine said to me yesterday, after the Heat played the Celtics the other night, Davion Mitchell had a three wide open from the corner, and he missed it at the buzzer to cost the game. If he makes it, so on and so forth. However, after the game was over, Davion Mitchell was smiling and talking with Jaylen Brown and so on. Now, I understand it. There's 82 games. These guys know each other from the U. They know each other. I don't like it in a big way. But if you're a fan of the Miami Heat and you really have been rooting for the Heat for 30 years, 20 years, whatever it is,
Yeah.
are you happy about this? Are you happy seeing the guy miss the big shot that can win the game and he's yucking it up with the Celtics?
Yeah.
That's what players need to understand. It's not going to kill the game by him doing that, but the casual fan who sees that is not happy. My friend is a Heat fan, and his biggest complaint, okay, he missed a shot. What are you going to do? But to see that, these players need to understand that. And if you have definite thoughts about something, you don't say it or don't smile and play. You could talk to somebody, in the locker, whatever, but not out in the open is the point. And
Yeah.
that's what I think these players are not understanding. And with James Harden's a mercenary. He's going to go in the Hall of Fame. But you know what? Here's a great question. What hat's he going to wear? Is he going to wear 10 different hats? Because it's a joke. And this is what he does. He holds teams up and moves on. How could you be a fan of that?
Yeah, I understand. I can't say being in LA, right, and having covered the Clippers for a time and having at the Peach Basket, we have two credentialed creators that are at every Clipper game. This exit was not like Harden's other exits. He didn't burn bridges. He left saying good things about the Clippers. He left saying he wished them success. So I think there will be a smattering of positive applause.
As long as he gets his way, he'll say anything.
I got you.
That's who the guy is, and it's a shame because he's a great player, and it's just the casual fan sees that and sits there, and this goes on all the time. The NBA, oh, those guys don't care. They play the last 2 minutes. What better example than James Harden could you hold up if you are that casual fan? And as a person who loves the NBA, it's very disappointing.
I got you. Okay. Okay. Let's see how things work out for Harden in Cleveland. I do think it's funny in quotes. You mentioned Garland's what he didn't have is health, and so they brought in a 37-year-old man who has been healthy. But it's so weird, right? Because we talk a lot about this being a young man's game, and there's really a pivot to youth. But the answer to a healthy off guard is James Harden, or really off point guard. But I think that's funny. But let's see what it does. Let's talk about another guy who's a little injury prone, who also moved. I'm going to bounce around a little bit. In your article, you talked about 7 interesting moves. This is Kristaps Porziņģis, who to me is just the potential there is incredible. This is a guy who was Wemby before Wemby, not the same exact skill set, but he could shoot threes. He's nimble. He did some amazing things in New York. And you called him a very talented big, but like Garland, he can't stay on the court. The Warriors needed something. Is Kristaps Porziņģis there something to make any noise in the West?
Obviously, he's got to play.
Yeah.
He's talented. He really is a talented player. He can shoot from anywhere. He's also a presence at the rim. He's so big that if you get him in switches, he's just so big he can shoot without anybody bothering him. It's just a talented player that just can't find the court. He's got a lot of problems. He's getting a little older. He's 30, I believe. And naturally, more injuries start happening. And for him, playing 2 days in a row, 2 games in a row is a big thing. So yeah, if he's healthy for the last 30 games or 20 games, whatever's left, Golden State could be a problem. But will he be healthy? That's the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, and it's sad that it always comes down to that. But Golden State's got another old guy who's been healthy in Steph Curry, who can change a game on a dime. If you get anything from Kristaps Porziņģis, yeah, I think that they could probably be what the Clippers envisioned being with James Harden, and that's a
Yeah,
disruptor, a team that can knock somebody out right in the early rounds and really wreak havoc in the West.
yeah.
All right. Real good. Let's see how that plays out. Hoping for health for Kristaps Porziņģis. Let's talk about a former Warrior. It's a great segue. Jonathan Kuminga. Now he finally got out. That was the longest divorce proceeding in the history of the NBA, I think. But he's out, and he's got a great opportunity in Atlanta. He's going to get extended minutes, and this is where we see if he is who he thinks he is, and who a lot of people think he is. Is he a star? Is he a really good player? What do you think of Kuminga and the Hawks in that fit?
First of all, I don't quite understand, and I'll never understand why he didn't get more time. It'll never. You play your five best players. If he's one of your five best, you use him. And if you need him to play a role where he's not scoring a lot of points, you got to explain that to him. And you got to. And but if he's more talented, you have to use him. So I don't understand that. The only thing, if and this is Steve Kerr's credibility with this is on the line, really, because if he goes to Atlanta and really does well, doesn't make Kerr look good, and it doesn't make Golden State look good for getting rid of this guy when with Jimmy Butler hurt, you need him.
Right.
So it's a very interesting thing. I have no thoughts if he's good enough or if he's not. I don't know. I can't even guess. But we'll find out. The interesting thing also now, Atlanta, they're starting to stack up some talent.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much time he's going to get because they got Jalen Johnson, who's not a bad little player, and he's more of a 3-4 type Jalen Johnson. But point being, they got some players, and it's going to be interesting to see if he gets a lot of time because he does need. Ideally he should have gone to a team like Sacramento, and they can throw him out there for 30 minutes and find out what's there. He's not in that. I don't think he's in that situation in Atlanta. So that's interesting. And by the way, and I don't know if Atlanta will ever get rid of the stigma because they've always been talented but not good enough. But Atlanta has got, if you look at them, they've got some players. And they could become a problem for the Eastern Conference in the future. I don't know about right now, but in the future.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate for the Hawks, but there was such promise with Trae Young. They couldn't build around him. He wasn't the right fit. Who knows what happened? But yeah, they have been stuck in that perpetual mid-tier for as long as I can remember. The last Hawks team that age me, but I know the last Hawks team I remember being excited to watch play was Dominique Wilkins' team. Those teams were fun and they made some noise, but they haven't been a threat in the East since then, have they?
Speaking about Trae Young and just that, what the NBA is starting to trend towards needing guys that are 6'4" or bigger. A 6'1" guy gets picked on too often. Unless you're Jalen Brunson and can go out and get 25 in your sleep,
Sure.
You're gonna give up more than you're getting. It's exciting. Trae Young's fun to watch, but is he helping his team? Is the point, and that's what I think this is really about.
Yeah.
With the Hawks, they figured out how to defend. They're getting better because they got Walker in place of Young and Trae Young, and he's a much better defender, and he's not a bad shooter when he's open, and he can play. Yeah. So they've improved themselves in that way.
Let's talk about another team that's been actually not as good as the Hawks, stuck in a lower tier than the Hawks, and that's the Washington Wizards. And for a long time, we wondered, what the heck are they doing? What's the plan in Washington? They ended up with Anthony Davis, who is a phenomenal talent, but Kristaps Porziņģis, like Darius Garland recently, he just can't stay on the court. But you said some good things. You said the Wizards are putting together a nice group of young players. Do you see some light at the end of the tunnel, the very long, dark tunnel that the Wizards have been in for years?
They've been getting, they've been doing okay with their picks. But the unfortunate thing is they're in the lottery and they never get the first pick or some future star. Alex Sarr is a pretty good player.
Yeah,
Keyshawn George is a pretty good player.
yeah,
But, and so is Bilal Koulibaly. But those aren't guys like you put a group of that together, and that's not a great team. They're good, but they're not great. They're taking the Wizards, probably because the crowds aren't good, are taking a gamble on these two guys, and they figure that maybe that will push them over, making them legit, at least for a year or two. I don't know what they're going to do with Anthony Davis if they're going to re sign him. If they don't, Davis has got two choices. Do I go out and play and shut up and prove to the NBA that I can still play and get my contract? Or do I moan and complain and then he's going to shoot himself in the foot? But if he does come out and play, it gets interesting. And same with Trae Young. Now, what you're doing is if you're going to build a team, you got to have a philosophy. I don't know what the Wizards' philosophy is, but you're getting a real good defensive player in Davis and a terrible defensive player in Young. So it look like they're just grabbing whatever's out there. And that's not a way to build a team. You've got to have a thought and you've got to work around that. And let's go back to the Hawks. They decided Trae Young couldn't defend and wasn't worth it, so they brought in defenders.
yeah.
And the thought being we're going to be better defensively. What exactly is Washington's just trying to get a bunch of guys, throw them out there, and hope it works? That's it. Sometimes it doesn't, but you're not really thinking, how do I want to construct a team? It looks like the general manager, I can't think of his name right now, but the GM Winger, he's the president of the organization. He's just trying to throw things against the wall because maybe he's getting a little pressure. Let's get better. We got to stop tanking and become a better team. So this probably will be the last year when they tank, unless they fall apart. But they're going to try to win after this year.
So I'm gonna put on my Washington Wizards cap and say, listen, if we get a phenomenal all offensive type player like Trae Young, we've got to balance that out by getting a phenomenal defensive player. And that's what they did. So I've got the offense in Trae Young and I've got the defense in Anthony Davis. They balance each other out. Doesn't that make sense?
No.
Why not?
Why? Because if you have two bad defenders, I've said a million times, you're not going to do well. And Trae Young is 6'1". He's susceptible. He loses interest defensively. If somebody cuts through or something, he'll just stay at the foul line. And he does things along that line. You want, yeah, I guess it sounds good, but I don't see it. I think Trae Young he's a talented, very talented player. Fun to watch. But he's of yesteryear in the NBA. The NBA is changing. And unfortunately, when you're 6'1", it's hard to change.
Isn't it possible, and I think that this answered that question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Isn't it possible that you are such a good offensive player that you can do that defensively? I'm thinking of Luka Doncic, who is an absolute gateway, all right, for some offenses. By that, I mean, he's just go on ahead and go to the hoop. I've seen it. He's not a very good defender. And there's points when he's engaged when he is, but he's a phenomenal all-world talent. Are we saying that Trae Young is just not good enough offensively to be that bad defensively?
There's a difference for an organization. You need to decide, do you want to have the exciting player that people will turn out for with a title? Wow. My question back to you is, how many titles has Luka won? How many titles has Trae? A lot of people have been in the finals. How many titles has Trae Young won? Again, for Washington, bringing Trae Young, they're probably gonna sell more tickets next year. And that's probably because the owner's been taking a beating for the last 3 or 4, Ted Leonsis. He's taken, I'm sure, hey guys, we got to get this, we got to get better here. And this is what they do. But I don't know. Like I said, how many titles has he won? And for the Lakers with Luka, it was a common sense trade. If you're giving up Anthony Davis, you're going to take Luka. It's no brainer. However, let's think about this. LeBron's on his way out. So you got to get in the Lakers. You have to have a star. But you want stars? They have new ownership now. They want stars. They
True.
want titles. That's the question.
Yeah. All right. Interesting. Certainly hoping for the best for AD in Washington and for the Wizards. But let's talk about another Los Angeles center who ended up in the East. That's Ivica Zubac, just an absolute beloved player here. Clipper fans just love this guy. He played here 7 years. He was a throwaway, right? The Lakers just gifted him to the Clippers, and he just blossomed. So there's a lot of love for Zubac. But that was a great trade for the Clippers. But let's talk about the benefit to the Pacers. You said that the Pacers should be back because they've got that replacement for Myles Turner now in Zubac, and they got Haliburton coming back next year. This isn't for this year, right? This is for the next couple of years. What do you see for the Pacers down the road?
Well, the Pacers, they didn't want to pay Turner because he would have put them in the tax, and they don't like going in the tax.
Sure.
Zubac's salary is low enough that they stay out of the tax. So that's important to them. That's important to their ownership. But also, the Pacers now have the only thing they lost is Mathurin, who's a good player.
Yeah.
But they have pretty much the same group that got to the finals. So they're in business. They'll be okay if Haliburton comes back in a decent way. So for me, the first thing the Pacers had to figure out was how do we get somebody that can do it, that can be the big, that can, like Myles Turner, and he's better than Myles Turner. And they also made the deal where I believe the draft pick they gave up, it's like weird. I think they get to keep it if they get picked from 5 to 9, but anything else, and maybe I'm wrong, but anything else goes to the Clippers. And Pacers figuring that they're not horrible to finish on the first 4 or 5 picks or some. I don't know the exact, but they're gambling that they can finish in that second tier where, let's say, sixth or seventh, and they get the seventh pick. That's theirs. So if they do that, they can replace Mathurin as well. And all of a sudden, you got something there.
Yeah, it's a very odd protected pick. And I'm going off memory here, but I think if it's 1 through 4, the Pacers keep it. 5 through 8, it's the Clippers. Anything after, it's very oddly.
Yeah, and the Pacers are figuring. And I'll tell you what, you watch the teams that are tanking, and the Pacers, they play hard. And that's Rick Carlisle. They play hard every
Right.
night. And every team that plays them's got a game. You know, they might not be good enough to win, but they've got a game. And Siakam is playing hard, and he's a good player, and he keeps them in games. Yeah, that's who the Pacers are, and they probably figure they will be able to keep it because they'll try to fit in the right spot.
Outstanding. Listen, we got in just under the clock. I think it's probably the third time we've done it, but there's one other player that you called out, and we're just going to talk about it because he's a Boston Celtic. He's, I think, a really solid player. He's like Zubac in a way, a kind of player who was under the radar a little bit, different type of player than Zubac. But a guy I like, that's Nikola Vuković, who's now with the Celtics. What does that mean for Boston, who
Well,
had, to me, a much better season this year than anybody would have expected?
first of all, Cade and Garza were playing a lot of minutes, way more than they ever played. So they were going to wear down. Now you've got somebody who can get you 25 to 30 minutes a night, can score. Doesn't like to defend real well, but he can score. And also, he's thicker than Cade. Cade is not thick, although, again, Garza is not, Vuković is not a good defender. But, and Cade is a better defender, good rim protector. The other night he had 19 rebounds. I guess that was against Houston. So Cade can do a lot of things. So now you've built something, and Garza can shoot the ball. But you've got Cade and Vuk. And the two of them can, if they're used correctly, one can get you the offense, the other one can get you the ball. You got something cooking here. The negative is losing Anfernee Simons.
Yeah.
To me, it looks like they're saying Tatum will be back this year because you don't make that deal. Although Boston got under the tax and did all the good stuff in this week, but Anfernee Simons is a pretty good offensive player, and I'm going to guess he'll make between 18 and 20 million next year, as a free agent. I would love to see him come back to Boston, but I don't think that'll happen. And for Boston, he was well worth it because he single-handedly won a couple games for him.
Yeah, you called him out earlier as the new Vinny, the microwave Johnson, a throwback to the great Piston player. And you said about Simons is that every championship team needs a player like this.
That's right.
And now he's not on the team anymore. So you got to draw that line and figure,
Well,
listen, we know we need a player like him. We got him coming. It's Jayson Tatum.
that's what you gotta think that he's coming back this year because there's been a lot back and forth about him coming back, but you gotta think that because Vukovic's contract is up at the end of the year. So where are you? So you got to figure this is what they're doing,
Right.
unless Boston figures they can get Vukovic cheap next year in his contract. But it just, what else? Why else would you go for it? I don't know if Boston has enough talent to win the East. So they need, with Tatum, you're in the game.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. Even 50, 60% Tatum is going to be enough, which is probably what you're going to get at the start, right?
I would think so. Who knows? Naturally, you worry about him fitting in with this team and all the other stuff. But he's what makes, if you're a fan, Boston fun is because most of those guys really like playing for Boston.
Yeah.
Where again, we talked about Harden earlier. Harden doesn't care as long as there's green involved in it. He's happy, and that's not Boston green; it's green. These guys are really they like being Celtics, and that's Brown and Tatum,
Yeah.
and that's a rare thing I think in the
Yeah.
NBA.
I think that is absolutely true. All right, that's it. You heard our buzzer went off. We went through it. Although we could have stopped and had no shot clock violation, we kept going because that's what we do. But our time is up. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please make sure to read Steve's entire 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts article. We will link it wherever you're watching or listening to this show to get all of his thoughts on all of the 7 players. And of course, join us next week for more NBA Random Thoughts as we recap week number 17. All right, we'll talk then. Thanks, Steve.